I didn't realize how much of my personality was built around making people feel comfortable. I thought that I was just kind and considerate. It feels painful to realize that I was just afraid.
Aaliyah Zealous.
I was a good girl too. Agreeable, responsible, helpful, accommodating. These were core traits tied to my personality. And I'm not saying that these traits are bad to embody in and of themselves, but why I was this way and how embodying these traits were used as tools to control me and the person that I actually am is horrendous. I have so many identities that I was born into that contributed to this. I'm the firstborn daughter. I was the only girl amongst my siblings well into my preteens until my little sister was born. I have 4 brothers, and I was raised in a religious family that really held traditional gender roles as a high standard. So I was a high performer, parentified at a young age. I don't think I ever even received approval in the traditional sense, as in, oh, you've done a good job, because getting good grades and being a high performer was just what I was supposed to do. It was expected, so there was no reason to get approval or praise for that. But I was getting approval when I was consistently conforming to the beliefs and rules of my parents, specifically my dad, and the religious community that I come from. I was receiving approval when I was willing to do what I was told and had this open demeanor of being willing and ready to be taught by the adults in my life. Even if it was a forced lecture or I was being talked at about a topic that I didn't ask an opinion on or even cared about. I saw that I earned approval when I performed curiosity and generosity for being taught things that I didn't ask for. I also saw that I earned approval when I was a vessel for adults to just vomit their problems and their rants into without any pushback or questioning. When I disappointed people, I often got extremely anxious and jumped into repair and managing their emotions mode, because it felt like them being disappointed in me took my value to them away. It felt like I did something to show that I wasn't valuable to them anymore. So my response to that was to show that I can be useful and valuable to them again. And I'd fall back into old habits almost as a form of apology for even daring to slip out of them in the first place. Having a wide range of emotions wasn't exactly safe in my home, specifically anger. Anger was mainly only acceptable for my dad and other men to express, unless it was a collective anger that everyone wanted you to be angry with them about. My mom and other adults could express anger occasionally too, but specifically it was only an emotion that my dad had a right to. My siblings and I didn't, because children didn't have a right to be angry, and children didn't have anything to actually be angry about. Specifically when it came to the adults in our lives. If you displayed any discomfort or anger, the adults in our lives would take that as a major offense and a form of disrespect. You have an attitude that needs to be corrected, and that was met with a more ferocious, overpowering anger from the adults. I wouldn't say that disagreement was met with punishment, but it was met with a sort of belittling. As a child, if I disagreed with something, then I was aggressively prompted to defend my stance in a cohesive way. And this is me as a child trying to defend myself to adults who I'm already intimidated by. And because I wasn't able to articulate well what I was feeling or why I disagreed, that was kind of used as a, see, you're just a child. You don't know what you're talking about anyway. I was made to feel stupid, and it created this dynamic in me where I struggled to trust myself and my own intuition if I could not accurately defend my stance in an articulate way to others. I think I became aware that in my young adult years that I was living with a level of anxiety that I thought was normal ever since I was young. In situations where there's a power dynamic, like I'm an employee and I have a boss, that has always given me extreme anxiety because the obvious power dynamic immediately catapults me back into a space of how I handled my parents and other adults in my life. When I'm in a relationship with people who have a very loud and boisterous way of expressing themselves, I immediately feel like I'm being overtalked, or someone is intentionally doing that because they're trying to overpower me and force me to conform to their beliefs, their emotions, and what they're saying. Because that's how I experienced people when I was young. Who I am now, I want people to freely express themselves and be who they are. And it's still a thing of I have to tell myself that when it starts and when it catches me off guard, that this person is not trying to intentionally overpower me. That's just how they are. When someone else is getting very loud in a discussion and is very convicted with what they're saying, it made me start to doubt myself because of this belief that, well, if they're so passionate, then they must be sure and know exactly what they're talking about. And because I didn't feel so passionately about what I was saying or what I was talking about, or I didn't express myself in that way, it made me believe that then I must not be so sure, or I must not know what I was talking about. Especially considering that having a boisterous tone and demeanor were indicators of a great leader. Also, when I had to share a space with someone who I felt was unpredictable, or their emotions felt unpredictable and a lot for me to manage, or because I'm just so sensitive as a person and very sensitive to other people's emotions and energies within a space, in order to keep the peace and feel like I didn't have to fix something or take responsibility for someone else, or feel anxious maneuvering about the space, I would people please just to even prevent anything from happening and to try to catch the other person from being unhappy before they even have a chance to express unhappiness. Usually, people pleasing feels like anxiousness in my body. My chest starts to tighten. Mostly my stomach drops and hurts for as long as the situation persists, and even while I'm sitting in anticipation of the situation. I often feel my limbs go cold and I have the shakes and the shivers. I stumble over my words and even find myself rushing through my words in hopes that if I get them out fast enough, then I'll make more sense. Oftentimes I'm fawning, smiling and complimenting people in hopes to make them feel more comfortable and not see me as a threat. I especially know that I'm people pleasing, especially when I'm fawning, because I'm overexerting extra energy that I don't have, and then I feel drained afterwards. I know I'm people pleasing when I have something to say, but I hesitate and become anxious after with speaking my mind. When I notice that I'm consistently agreeing to something or agreeing to do something that I don't actually agree with or want to do, then I know that I've been people pleasing. On the surface, I thought that I was maneuvering life this way because I thought that I was being a kind and considerate person. Someone who isn't difficult, cares about others, and is community oriented. Most times, I was just choosing safety. I realized that people pleasing was protecting me from tension, from rejection, conflict, and disapproval. It protects me from being abandoned and rejected based on the idea that I'm a horrible person. And that says something true about who I fundamentally believe myself to be as a person. Because I actually don't mind being rejected or abandoned under other circumstances. But in the community that I came from, being shunned was the norm. I think because people pleasing is also a big part of how I stay safe in dynamics that I'm not sure about and are uncomfortable with, and because a big part of that is monitoring my situation and the emotional states of people around me, I fear that if I stop people pleasing and just ignore the energetic tug that I feel from the people around me, then I will miss something important and put myself in social danger. I fear that I would actually be the person in the wrong and would then be responsible for this huge ball that I dropped that I was responsible for. Or I fear that if I'm not monitoring a situation or the people around me, then the other party would do something I miss that could potentially hurt me and my stability. Hurt me by ripping apart a piece of my fundamental identity, by being able to say that I'm this type of horrible, undesirable person, and here is the proof of that. There's also just a big part of me that feels like I don't actually know what I'm doing with life, and that other people know more than me. So if I don't conform in situations to what others want and believe, then I'm mistakenly navigating my life in a way that I will wind up having a poor quality of life. Recovery hasn't been easy, but it's been well worth it. I no longer let other people being emotionally scattered or frazzled drift onto me and make me rush my decisions and beliefs. I pause before I say yes, and pause to check in with myself before committing to anything. Even if that means that I have to get back to the person 5 minutes later, an hour later, a day later, a week, or even a month, or even a couple of months. Who gives a fuck? I put the responsibility of someone's emotions and regulating those emotions back on that person. I often tolerated the discomfort of doing things that other people wanted that I didn't want. Now I transmute that into tolerating the discomfort that I feel for standing up for myself, because I know that that discomfort will be much more helpful to me in the long run. I know that I'm important and that my boundaries and my desires are important. I'm a valuable person, whether someone sees that and acknowledges that or not. And I have every right to assert myself and my boundaries. I allow misunderstandings of what I've said and who people believe me to be. I let people say their piece and show up as they are, take the time to process what they've said and who they are, understanding that how they respond and who they are actually has nothing to do with me. Then I would take the time that I need to say my piece. And I don't react to people as if their well-being and their emotions are my responsibility. There are still some boundaries that are hard. Establishing new boundaries feels particularly uncomfortable, especially when I say one thing but then change my mind about the level of access or how I want to go about something, and then have to re-establish a new boundary about something that I've already said. That still feels especially uncomfortable and especially difficult because it's still attached to this deep belief that changing my mind is wrong. And if I change my mind, then that's just proof that I don't know who I am and I didn't know what I was talking about and don't know what I want to begin with. And don't know what I'm doing. Interestingly enough, I've learned about myself that there's a side to this people-pleasing thing that I engage in because I'm actually worried that I can be overpowering to people and be too much. I worry that I can be blunt in a way that other people feel minimized by me. And that feels horrible to be monitoring myself in that way because I don't want other people to feel minimized the way that I felt minimized by other people. When I was younger, I was even described as an angry child, and my parents put me in an etiquette class, which I passed with flying colors because my etiquette is exquisite. I wanted to pause here because I think that this is also a very good example of what I mentioned earlier with anger not being something that the children were allowed to feel, only the adults had a right to, because as you can see in this example, when I was described as a child with anger issues, that was met with putting me in an etiquette class because me being angry wasn't about needing anger management or going to go see a therapist or anything of that nature. It was about needing to fix my attitude or needing to fix how I maneuver socially and how I kind of present myself in a way, because etiquette is all about presenting yourself in a way that is acceptable, that is socially acceptable. So the fact that I was angry or even considered angry, it was a personality / socially unacceptable thing that just needed to be corrected. It never addressed the reasons that I always felt angry. I felt angry because I always felt stifled, not good enough, not worthy, and only valuable to people when I'm serving their purpose. Not being a human being because my surroundings made me believe that I didn't know how to be a human being correctly. I think a part of me was also scared of my own power because of my experience. I know that I can be an assertive person and take full control of a space. And then the fear tells me that then I would have to take full responsibility of a situation, and I worry that I wouldn't actually know how to lead and assert myself the way that I imagine. There's a part of me that knows that I can vocalize something that is meaningful and people would find valuable to them. And then the fear tells me that what if people listen to me and then something goes horribly wrong, and then I would really have to take full responsibility of the fallout of that situation. And that would just be further proof of if I actually ever was capable of making decisions and thinking through problems at all. But becoming the villain in someone else's story is sometimes the price you pay in becoming the hero of your own.